Hello and welcome back to my new series, Every Disney Parks Movie Reviewed, or that's what I'm going to call it until I come up with a better name. But basically, I am going to take a look at every Disney ride adapted for the silver screen. In the first edition, we looked at 1997's Tower of Terror. And for this second installment, we're taking a look at 1996's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Why are we looking at these out of order? Well, despite the film coming out before Tower of Terror, the movie was not retitled to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride until it came out in 1998 when Disney released the film in the US. Yes, I know I said I would not count things like Star Wars as a Disney Parks ride movie, since those movies came out first and the rides are based on the movies and not the other way around, but Wikipedia still lists this movie as the second entry of the series, so I'm going to go with that list. Y'all got beef? Bring it up with Mr. Pedia or something. This is my review of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, the wildest ride in the wilderness. Wait, that's not the right ride. Before we get into the review, I would just like to ask that you like, comment, share this video, and subscribe to my channel. Any little bit helps. Thank you. Okay, something I realized I should have done a bit more in the first edition of the series is explain the history of the ride a bit more and explain more of what actually happens in the ride. Let's do that right now before we get into the movie, and considering how confusing the ride is, I think it's more than necessary with this one. In 1949, Disney released an animated film entitled The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which was based on the Kenneth Grahame novel The Wind in the Willows, a beloved children's book. The film was reviewed positively and grossed $1.625 million, or about $20 million today. In 1955, Disneyland opened with Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, based off the characters from that film, becoming an opening day attraction. The Magic Kingdom version would open in the parks on that opening day in 1971, but would later be replaced by the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. The Disneyland version still operates to this day and has been refurbished multiple times. In the Disneyland version of the ride, riders start off their journey by crashing into a library because no one has respect for the written word anymore, and writing is a dying art. You then crash through the fireplace, because why should you be safe on a ride from fire, before heading to a wrecked Toad Hall and find a mole at a dinner table. Once you leave, you head to the countryside where you are chased by policemen before narrowly avoiding the river and heading to a warehouse full of explosives, which is a safer alternative. While the warehouse explodes, the ride vehicle turns towards London, where you miss a collision with a delivery truck before you head to town square and then a courtroom without a jury, because why should you be granted rights? You are proclaimed guilty for what I don't know before you straight up just run into a train and get sent to hell. You literally die and go to hell. Just to note, Walt Disney himself wanted to make this a dark ride, not a roller coaster, because he thought a roller coaster was inappropriate for children and older people. The part where you die for no reason and go to hell was fine in his mind, but the roller coaster was a step too far. Thanks, Walt. In hell, you are attacked by literally everything. Small devils, the judge, but as a devil, and a dragon who wants to burn you to a crisp, even though you are already dead. You avoid it somehow and then head back to the unload area and go back to the true hell that is Anaheim, California. I joke, but it's actually a pretty fun ride, one with a ton of history and artistry inside of it. I mean, this was an opening day attraction at Disneyland. It's as old as the park, and it's still welcoming riders every day over 60 some years later. It's also a ride that feels like it has a high capacity and not a ton of demand, so you can get on it pretty quick. So you're probably never waiting longer than like 30 minutes, which will usually get a "that wasn't so bad" comment from your parents. So win-win. With that said, how does this movie fit with the ride? Quite honestly, to be frank with you, telling you the truth, it really doesn't. To keep being honest, I was a little hesitant to do this movie as a separate review because it wasn't until 2 years after it came out that Disney decided to release it in the States as Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So it's not even really based off the ride, but I did say I would use that Wikipedia list of Disney attractions to movies for this series, and Wikipedia
Never lies.
so I will go ahead and review this movie. Oh, the sacrifices I make as a YouTuber for your amusement. Just kidding. Please keep watching. Okay, I think to really judge if this is an accurate or faithful Mr. Toad's Wild Ride film, we need to get into the actual plot of the movie. What's it about? What happens? Is it good, bad, ugly? Do you ever have thoughts about death? Okay, sorry. Got this review mixed up with my diary. Always doing that these days. Anyways, let's get into the plot of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Mole, played by Steve Coogan, sees his home crushed by the Weasels, a pernicious group of assholes who act as the mafia of the town these characters live in. He visits Rat, the guy from Figment, who takes him to Mr. Toad, who instead of helping decides to get into a bunch of debt with the Weasels so he can buy new, lavish cars. See what happens when you don't invest into public transportation. Something I also want to mention here because as we go through the movie, it's just going to become more confusing. Our main trio here is Mole, Rat, and Toad, and the bad guys are the Weasels. These characters all have some sort of animal characteristic, like they're just humanoid animals. Mole has these claws, Rat has a tail, and Toad is green and looks like Shrek. What's confusing to me is that the Weasels don't really have any sort of animal characteristics besides just the weaselly look they have to them. And also, there are humans in this world too. We see them a little bit later, but there are people in this world like the judge that are just regular humans. It makes you wonder what kind of universe this is where the animals are basically humans with one characteristic. Like, what happened? Was there a gene splicing incident? Has it always been like this? Have all the animals been exterminated so people had to take on these roles? Were animals grown into humanoids like in Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Is this a car situation? I don't know if that last one even makes sense. I'm just always kind of scared of a car situation happening. If anyone would like to let me know why these human animals exist with humans and this isn't a CGI hybrid, please email me at animalhumanhybridsarescary@gmail.com. After a big snafu where Toad tries to get into a massive car accident, Toad is sentenced to life in a castle dungeon while the Weasels take over Toad Hall, evicting Mole and Rat in the process. After a bit of runtime and some weird attempts at character development, where the Weasels tell Mole that he doesn't have friends, but like that's already not true.
Friends, you're a spineless nobody, Mole. Who'd want to be your friend?
Toad is sprung from his cage and boards a train where the conductor helps him escape and confronts the Weasels who are also aboard the train. In order to get away, Toad hijacks the train as Mole and Rat unlatch the train cars, which causes an accident. Okay, I guess public transportation isn't the solution here. We find out that the Weasels are intending to use Toad Hall as a basis for their new dog food factory, which again just makes you question some of the rules of this world. So they're making food specifically for animals. I'm not sure if we even ever see a dog either. Are they actual dogs? Or are they hybrids like every other animal? And if they are, why do they even need dog food at that point? Just open a Domino's pizza. That'll probably be more lucrative. While the police and Weasels are celebrating, Mole rescues Rat and Toad while the Weasels try to kill the chief, while also the Weasels start to accidentally blow up the factory, but somehow Toad Hall and all of Toad's friends end up okay. In the end, Mole's house is repaired and Toad swears off cars before embarking on a new craze, flying. Oh, buddy, just wait till you read about Boeing. You'll never want to fly again. So that essentially is the plot of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. What does it have to do with the actual ride at Disneyland, though, besides the name? So obviously, I don't really expect a ride story to be adapted one-to-one to a film. Rides are like 5-minute tops most of the time, and these films are expected to run at least 90. And this was also obviously a change made for some sort of corporate synergy when it came out in the States. So I didn't expect it to really match up with the ride at all. I mean, there are obvious similarities with the characters being consistent, of course, and they did get the ride part down because Toad sure does love his cars. But this movie definitely is more based off the book, from what I can tell, than the ride, which is totally fine. Ending your movie for kids with a moment where the characters go to hell probably isn't the best idea, despite how much I would enjoy it. So I really don't blame this movie at all for not being like the ride. And despite my jokes, I did kind of enjoy it. I can't play any of it for you, but the music in this film is exquisite. It does a great job of providing a whimsical and adventurous feel throughout the entire movie. And I joke about the animal hybrids, but I do like a lot of the makeup and the costumes. This movie in no way comes off as ugly, except maybe for Toad. Looks more like a guy throwing up than a toad. And the costume and makeup design is a big part of that. I mean, just saying, I would take this film's costumes and makeup over something like 2019's Cats any day. Something to gripe on the film about for me is just that Toad is kind of an unlikable asshole. That very well may be his character, but you can have unlikable characters that are still charming and fun to watch. Toad is just kind of an asshole and he keeps getting his friends in trouble. He doesn't really seem to ever learn a lesson. I guess that you don't need that in every film, but this certainly feels like a film where a lesson would have made sense and some actual character growth would have been welcome. And they were certainly trying with Mole's character.
You were very brave, Molly.
So it doesn't make sense that Toad just gets to be annoying throughout the movie without any real consequences or growth. And this movie is also just really loud. Like everyone is always screaming and yelling and just being kind of a dingus. So it can be a bit much at times.
Look out! Splendid!
6 motor cars.
Have you noticed?
Oh, are they brand new? Oh, I must see them. Let me out.
Mr. Toad.
Also, I know I mentioned music, like the score earlier, but this is also somewhat of a musical. If you think I just forgot and remembered to include this now, you'd be right. But the movie also forgot to tell me it would be a musical, and almost any synopsis or Wikipedia style page I found on it also forgets to tell you that this is a musical, which I just find amusing, especially if you've read the news recently about how studios try to trick people into thinking something isn't a musical because they don't think people will like a musical. I actually kind of like some of the songs and the whimsical nature of them, but it's just funny to me that there's really no sign that this will be a musical. Then all of a sudden, these characters just start singing. I even like the Mr. Toad songs, even though Terry Jones is kind of just screaming and whining during them. He's a legend, but it's just the truth.
Police could never catch him.
He was so nimble, Toad.
He escaped from their clutches, but none knows as much as amazing Mr. Toad.
All in all, I really think this is a pretty enjoyable film. There's a likable cast, solid music, a fun energy, even if it's a bit loud at times, and solid production design. It really doesn't match up with the Disneyland ride at all, but that makes sense considering it was retconned later on as a ride adaptation anyways. If you're a fan of Monty Python and you like Mr. Toad and the books or whatever, this film is pretty fun and an easy watch. If you go in thinking it'll be an adaptation of the ride, you'll probably be disappointed, but I'm not sure anyone is especially yearning for Mr. Toad's ride movie anyways. With that said, now that I've done multiple movies in this series, I can finally start to rank these films in order of my favorite to least favorite. With that said, here's my ranking of these films so far. Number 2, Tower of Terror. Number 1, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Super dramatic, I know. Okay, like, subscribe, share, and comment, and see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.